Afternoon and welcome to those viewers joining us. Where I'm sitting today, it's a sunny Taunton. So I don't know where other people are sitting. If you want to let us know, that'd be great. Nice to know where people are coming from. And we'll get going in a minute. We're going to welcome today Len, who I've known for a few months and who actually is going to update us on the conflict avoidance process and resolutions. So let's get going. I think in a minute we'll put up today's survey. Appreciate it if you can fill it in. Abraham, do you want to bring it up? If to join today, you can do it one of two ways. You can put your phone and get the OCR code, or you can join us online by going to slido.com. Today's code is #LM121225, which is today's date. So let's put it up on the screen, please, Abraham, and we'll run through the questions. So can we put the first question up? Yeah, okay. So do construction disputes harm the relationship between clients and contractors? So you've got four choices here. Yes, they usually harm the relationship. No, they have little effect. Only on very large projects, not sure. So please choose one of those. And then we'll go to question number 2. Would you support using early intervention to avoid disputes? You've got four choices here. Yes, definitely. Maybe in some cases. No, not really, not sure. So please make a choice. And now we'll move on to the next question. Do you think the industry is now less able to negotiate its way out of problems? Well, we've got two choices here. Yes, negotiation skills have declined. No, negotiation skills are the same or better. It depends on the company and not sure. So four choices. Someone's completed the lot, as we can see, one at the top right hand side. So let's go on to number 4. This one we're now going to ask you to put on a scale. Do you agree that construction disputes cost the industry millions each year? So you can strongly disagree and you can go down to the left hand side, or you can strongly agree. But roughly, please give us what your view is. Do you agree that construction disputes cost the industry millions each year? Okay, next question. Is the next generation entering an industry with more conflict and disputes? Choices here as yes, much more, a little more, about the same, less than before. So is the next generation entering an industry with more conflict and disputes? So yes, much more, a little more, about the same, and less than before. And lastly, one question remains. Should there be more training in early dispute resolution for people entering the industry? You've got not at all necessary on the left-hand side, or which is 1, or absolutely going to 10 is absolutely essential. So there you go. If you can send your answers in. We've got 4 people who've now done that, so that's great. So what I'm going to do is put those aside for a minute, and I'm then going to bring Len in. So Len, just to give people a background, Len is the president of the Conflict Avoidance Coalition and is with us today to discuss the progress that's been made in the UK construction industry to embed conflict avoidance measures into construction engineering projects. Len is a specialist in payment and cash flow problems in the industry, acts as an advisor to a number of trade organisations, and is involved as a contributor to a number of working groups dealing with different aspects of procurement and delivery projects. So welcome, Len. Great to see you today. Before we go on to discuss the main topic, Len, can you give the audience a snapshot of your views of the current state of the industry? And in particular, talk about payment pressures that are emerging. Would you like us to show the poll to do that, or do you want to just carry on and talk and look at the poll later on?
I'm quite happy to carry on talking.
Fine.
And first of all, to thank Constructing Excellence Midlands for the opportunity of being with you today. It's the second opportunity I've had, and thanks to Andrew Howard and Mark Wakefield for their commitment and enthusiasm to join the movement to introduce conflict avoidance into the industry. You may ask, why do I think I can give you a snapshot of what's happening in the industry? Well, one of the reasons for that is that our little business here, as Howard says, deals almost now on a daily basis with payment and cash flow problems. And I must say it's been of great concern in the last fortnight to see the number of people that are running into financial difficulties and projects, particularly coming up to Christmas. As to how that will play out, one just doesn't know, but we're certainly seeing a number of organisations who might have had one problem a month who would give us a call. That's now escalating to businesses having 7 or 8 instances of not being able to get money in or not getting paid the amount of money that they're due. I also talk a lot to other colleagues who specialise in the same field as I do, and the picture is very much the same. There's no diminution in the number of disputes that are being sent to adjudication. The RICS appoints about 1,200 adjudicators a year. And also in working closely with trade organisations, I really get a great exposure to what their members are experiencing. So there's no doubt about it in my mind that we are heading again into a very difficult situation in the industry. And conflict avoidance is only one of a number of issues that we're working on to try to improve the commercial management of construction projects. Now, one of the things I'm asked frequently is, why does the industry get into difficulties like this? And just to give you another example, I did a presentation to the Scottish Government on Monday, and I was asked a question: what is the single bullet that will change the construction industry? And my answer was, there isn't one. There are about 30 to 40 different areas that need to be looked at and developed to put the jigsaw together into one piece to see an improvement in the way the industry is operating. And one of the things I come across a lot is contractors saying to me, I'm not getting paid. And when you go under the covers and have a snoop about what's actually happening, quite often, sadly, you've got to say to them, well, I'm afraid you haven't demonstrated you're entitled to payment. So one of the areas that I major on is introducing best practice guidance into the industry so that construction businesses can improve the way they manage the commercial aspects of the projects. And I think if we channel a lot of energy into 10 to 12 different areas, we can actually start to see a significant improvement in the way the industry is performing. So that really leads me into the fact as to why is conflict avoidance so important to the future of the construction industry. And there's a series of slides that will be made available to everybody who's on this call. I don't intend to go through these in totally, because there are a number of other questions that Howard is going to be putting to me. Is it possible to share the 2 slides, please, that I put up?
Abraham, is that possible?
Yes, just 1 second.
Just takes a moment. Be patient with us.
What I would like to do is explain exactly what is the conflict avoidance process all about.
That was a question I was going to ask you in a minute. So great.
Yeah, well, I'll go on to updating where the coalition is, but yeah, so just before the slides come up, conflict avoidance is an early intervention process on projects to prevent issues escalating into disputes and ending up in warfare. Right, so there's only 2 of these. I've selected a couple of these. If you could scroll on, and I'll tell you where to stop. That's fine. If you stick there. It's about early intervention, as I say, to prevent issues escalating into disputes. And I have to say, wearing my adjudicator's wig, when I get a case in, I look at it and say, number one, how did you get into this mess? Number two, had you got round a table and discussed it, you certainly wouldn't be spending thousands of pounds in front of an adjudicator to try to get the issues resolved. So what it does, number one, it encourages the individuals to try to find a solution at site level or escalating up to director level. And if that doesn't work, then bringing in a third party, an experienced industry consultant, to look at the issues that the parties have and to try to find a resolution. It may not be perfect. The chances are it won't suit everybody. But at the end of the day, it allows issues to be dealt with and set aside and get back to the focus that we need in this industry, everybody building projects on time, on budget and in cost. That's what we're all trained to do. So that's what the conflict avoidance process is all about. And if you move on to the second slide. Take a second. I want to talk now about the conflict avoidance pledge. Sorry.
Do you want to go back?
No, that's fine. That's it. I just put two slides together for the purpose of this. You'll see there on the right-hand side, the pledge promotes collaboration, avoiding conflict, early resolution, prevents escalation, embeds a conflict avoidance philosophy into projects from the outset, and it promotes collaborative working. Now, to get information on the pledge, you see in the bottom left-hand corner there, just go into the Conflict Avoidance Coalition website, and you'll be able to find your way into actually signing and becoming a pledge signatory. So that is a bit of an outline as to what this process is all about. And if you wouldn't mind taking the slides down and come on to Howard's second question.
Right. I wonder if you can tell us how people become a pledge signatory then. I think you've shown us here what it's about. How do you become a pledge signatory, Len?
It's very straightforward, Howard. As I say, all that people need to do is go into the website, sign up. You will get some information from the coalition about how to take this forward, and everybody that signs the pledge becomes a bronze signatory or bronze partner. And we've recently been developing further developments in that sphere so that organisations can become silver and gold partners. And I say at almost every presentation that I do on this is not about having a nice diploma on your wall. This is actually about embedding conflict avoidance measures into your whole business and with your clients and with your supply chain. And to move to silver and gold partnership, organizations need to really demonstrate, if I can put it this way, of putting their money where their mouth is, that they can actually demonstrate that through their whole business, they will adopt conflict avoidance proposals and avoid getting into construction disputes. So it's a very easy process to get into. Somebody said to me at a presentation a few weeks ago, why would I sign this? And I said to them, well, why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you adopt a philosophy in your business that we're a good business to work with? We want to avoid having conflicts and disputes with you. So that's how you get into it. It's very easy.
Okay, Len. So what happens afterwards? You immediately become a bronze member. You can then go on to be silver and gold.
Yeah.
So how do you do that? In simple terms.
Well, first of all, we have a group of people within the Conflict Avoidance Coalition who will make contact with somebody that signs the pledge and offer to assist them to develop conflict avoidance into their business. And I do that frequently by talking to their commercial managers and their site managers, encouraging them to avoid the email warfare that goes on in projects and actually engage face-to-face with people. encourage them to, when they're tendering for a contract, for example, saying to the clients, we're a pledge signatory, would you be willing and able to adopt conflict avoidance processes into this contract? Engage with their subcontractors. One pledge signatory recently asked us to come in and talk to 25 of their supply chain because they're all interested in generating long-term business relationships, Howard. And the last thing they want to do is fall out with anybody, and certainly the last thing they want to do is to have payment issues. So working together to get around a problem really is the answer.
I mean, just from a bit of experience, a lot of people approach collaboration as a bit of a leap of faith. So what are some of the difficulties you've experienced in persuading organisations to actually buy in and commit to this process?
Most of my energy in the last 5 years with a lot of other people has gone into making people aware of the conflict avoidance process. And as you know, getting down to every contractor and subcontractor across the United Kingdom is an absolutely massive exercise. So that's one of the things that we've been doing. It hasn't really been difficult to persuade. In fact, we haven't needed to persuade them. Most of them, in fact, they've all said, we like this process. It sounds ideal for our business, and we'll sign up. And also we've had some very encouraging reactions from major clients, which I know we're going to come on to talk to about in a moment. So it's a no-brainer. It's been a very positive response from the industry. You mentioned collaboration, Howard, and there's incredible work being done by so many organisations at the present moment. And I just see conflict avoidance has been part and parcel of a major improvement to the way the industry works in the United Kingdom.
Yes, I mean, there are, but I mean, there's nonetheless reactions. So what sort of reactions have you had from the public and private sector? And what sort of engagement are you having at the present? Are these people, enthusiastic, getting on with it? What's the momentum?
Well, I think the momentum has been generated by virtue of some of the headline organisations that are in the coalition, Network Rail, Transport London, the Parliament Refurbishment and Restoration Project, a number of our major Tier 1 and Tier 2 contractors. And last week, there was a phenomenal development when the Environment Agency signed the Conflict Avoidance Pledge and have now become gold partners. And they have said to their framework contractors, we want all of you to commit to this. So I honestly believe, Howard, that this will be client driven. I mean, if a client is going to tender with a multi-million-pound job and he says to a bunch of contractors, we're going to have the conflict avoidance process in the contract, they're not likely to say, well, take us off the tender list. So it's up to clients to really see the benefit of that. So we're engaging with organisations like the British Property Federation. I mentioned the Scottish Government today, wrote yesterday to the Welsh and Northern Ireland governments. The NHS is obviously a huge opportunity there. Historically, in my jurisdiction, we've had some major problems recently on the construction of major hospital projects, all having to be paid for now by the taxpayer. So there's with budget constraints, I think the public sector will see this as a great opportunity to prevent cost overruns and budget pressure. So it's a means to an end that will help to improve the fiscal position in the country.
So what are they doing then to embed this philosophy into their frameworks and supply chains? I mean, how are they actually going about this?
Well, there's a number of things. I think the contractors, from what I've seen, have had to demonstrate, first of all, a willingness to participate in this process, and then an indication as to what conflict avoidance measures they have in their contracts. We now have developed boilerplate clauses. They're very simple. One of them simply says that in the event that issues arise in this project, the parties will adopt the conflict avoidance process, which will not preclude their right to go to adjudication at any time. And I think, going back to my opening remarks, Howard, I think what I'm seeing is a greater interest in engaging rather than confrontational things. So I think economic measures are actually forcing the contracting fraternity to say, we need to find a way through these problems. The last thing we need is spending £100,000 on a construction dispute, distracting our senior management, creating and impacting on relationships with our key contractors. So I think seeing more and more now of contractors saying we want to go away from competitive tendering, we want to build up long-term client relationships, and I think this is part of that process.
Okay. I understand that the conflict avoidance, the coalition is looking beyond and going to other areas. As an example, I believe there's a group looking at contract reviews in an effort to remove onerous terms and conditions from contracts at a tender stage.
Yeah.
What progress is being or has been made there?
Well, probably the most active organisation in that field is the finishes and interiors sector, and they now offer a contract review service to their members. So somebody like myself would review a contract at tender stage and identify to the client clauses that are potentially likely to cause them difficulties at a later date. I'm absolutely staggered, Howard, at the organisations that amend the standard forms of contract, JCT and NEC. And some of the provisions that are written into contracts nowadays are absolutely crazy. And I said to a lawyer last week, what is the purpose of you doing this? Life is tough enough in the industry without trying to tie somebody up in knots. So what we're doing is we're carrying out these contract reviews. We're then going back to the client to ask or to discuss with them either removing these clauses or getting them watered down. And if that doesn't happen, then the client has the option of walking away from a tender or taking the risk on the chin. And sadly, in the present marketplace, Howard, a lot of contractors are saying to us, look, I need the work. That is my absolute priority. I hear what you say about these clauses, but I'm going to take a risk that we won't have to deal with that 6 months down the line. So that's the market forces are driving that. So what we did was we have brought together about 18 people from across the industry who are all experienced in contract drafting, and we're working with them to talk to as many procurers of construction projects as possible to discourage them from amending standard forms. And I think that level of engagement is beginning to show some positives. Sending a contract out to tender with 45Z clauses in it is just, I just don't get it. I don't really understand what it is that people are trying to achieve. And I think the contracting organisations have got to stand up to that sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, clearly, if you're buying business, for want of a better word, you're going to put an awful lot of stresses on yourself, mental health and various other things. So what sort of, when we look at payment and cash flow problems, what support do you think can be given to contractors and the supply chain? Surely easing contracts is one thing, but do you think there's any support you think can be given to contractors and supply chains to help them through this period?
I do. Again, the finishes sector has a small number of consultants who offer advice to their members. Fortunately, I happen to be one of them. But I want to touch on some of the things that I've seen recently. and there was a survey come out a few months ago, which I thought was absolutely horrific, about people reporting financial difficulties, marriage breakups, mental health issues, suicidal feelings. I don't think that some people that are withholding payment really understand the mental pressure that that is putting somebody through. Let me give you an example. 2 Fridays ago, a client phoned me. He was driving home. He said, on Monday, I'm expecting to get £100,000 in. If I don't get that, my business is going into administration. He said, I'm going home tonight. The kids are going to brownies, guides, swimming, you name it. Tomorrow they're flat out with football, rugby, hockey. The kids want to go to Orlando on a holiday. And all the time this weekend, this is going round inside my head. And I've got nobody else to share that with. And that's why it's very important that contractors can reach out to somebody to put their arm around them and say, right, we're going to do our best to get you out of this mess. It gives people a lifeline. And unless the industry has got to start recognizing the damage that this is doing to people. And what is manifesting itself now, and you may have come across this in your own organization, is that a number of people are walking away from the industry.
Mm.
Family businesses are getting shut. People that are closing a business and going back in the tools. They've had enough.
Mm.
And the industry, I think, is losing some highly experienced individuals in a time when we actually need them. So I wouldn't underestimate the mental pressures that people are going through. And I can speak from first hand because I do speak to a lot of people, even at weekends or in evenings, to come up with encouragement and hope that we might be able to find a way through the difficulties. I'll come back to what I said earlier. I think, quite frankly, a lot of people don't care. And I think that is a shocking indictment of the construction industry in the United Kingdom.
I think you're right, but I can't imagine that. Well, I don't know. Are the construction problems in the UK replicated in other countries? Do you know that? Do you know anything about what's happening in conflict avoidance in other countries?
Yeah, I've fortunately, in my career, I've worked in a number of international projects. We are now engaging through the coalition with different organizations in different countries, and the enthusiasm and commitment for conflict avoidance is as powerful as it is in the United Kingdom. It doesn't seem to matter where you're building a building, you're going to run into the same problems of who's got design responsibility, quality of work, you're not getting paid, variations, all this sort of thing. It seems to be endemic across the world what the state the construction industry is in. So yeah, that's been an exciting development, engaging with so many international organizations.
Would you say we're ahead or behind some of the other nations on conflict avoidance, Len?
I think we're at the beginning of a process, Howard. I think it's going to take a lot of time for people to buy into this. And I don't think there's any country that I don't have any personal experience of any country that doesn't have these problems and is already working on this. I mean, obviously, dispute boards have been around for a long time, but I think this is an earlier step in the process. So I don't think we're better or worse than anybody else.
Then I think you're a bit like me. I mean, I've been pushing collaboration for years, so you strike me as someone who doesn't give up easily. So can you share some of the frustrations that you and your colleagues have had to deal with and are currently experiencing in getting this through to people?
I think at the present moment, one of the frustrations from a lot of our clients is I can't get a phone. I can't speak to anybody. They don't phone me back. Emails are not returned. And then somebody said, I got an email from the contractor the other day to say we're shutting down on the 19th of December. all computers are switched off, all mobile phones are switched off. We'll be back on the 6th of January. So you get to the 19th and you're expecting a payment in and you don't know whether you're going to get it. So, why people don't communicate and explain the situation to others? They just seem to walk away, go down a bolt hole and appear again on the 3rd or 4th of January. So that's very frustrating. What other frustrations do I get?
I think the point you raised there is really interesting because I've just written a piece and put it up on LinkedIn because one of the frustrations I find is that the people don't contact you. They're afraid of, well, it appears to me that they don't want to have a difficult conversation. And, that's poor leadership.
It is poor, yeah, it is poor leadership. I mean, I think when a QS gets an application for payment in and he puts his red pen through part of it and sends it back to the contractor and doesn't explain why he's doing that, that is immensely frustrating. And comes up with all sorts of excuses. The biggest excuse I see from contractors is we can't pay you because the client's not paying us. But that, no matter what people say, well, that's against the law at the moment. That's a fact. That's a reality in the industry. It happens, and I think that is down to the procurement system we have of having a main contractor who's engaging with the client and has got difficulties there. And then has got a raft of subcontractors below him and they've all got problems. So the main contractor is kind of caught between the two. So that's just a frustration.
I have another frustration. I mean, I've been doing some research over the last 2 or 3 years, and the level of trust has been declining in the sector. I mean, when we started looking at this, it was just under sort of 6 out of 10. It's currently hovering just below 5. So the level of trust is not in a good place. Would you agree with that from your experience?
It's difficult to say. It's not something I've really come across. I think that there are a group of contractors in this country that value very much the support of their supply chain. And one of them said to me a few weeks ago, if we don't have a good supply chain, we don't have a business.
Well, exactly. No supply chain, no top line. I mean, I agree with that.
And there are others, Howard, who don't give a hoot. If somebody says, I don't want to work for you again, they just say, fine, we'll always find somebody that will be prepared to work for us.
It's a sad way, isn't it? But anyway, let's take a more positive view. So I understand there's some other things that you're involved in, some other initiatives. And at the present moment, can you tell people about the philosophy behind the best practice guide you're putting together?
Yeah, absolutely. That's been a very exciting piece of work. And I can give CEM the reference for it. It's a document that was produced about 3 years ago by about 10 or 12 very experienced people in the industry. And what we did was we looked at how and why construction disputes develop in projects. We looked at the sort of thing that land on an adjudicator's desk, and we put together about 14 recommendations as to how to improve the commercial management of projects. Now, some of it is fundamental. Let me give you an example. Have a payment schedule in a contract so that you schedule out the various dates. Make sure you hit these dates. Realize that if you don't hit these dates, your payment application is going to go into the next cycle. When you put a payment application in, follow up with a communication to the PQS or the architect or whoever. Ask them if there are any issues in relation to the application. Do they need any more information? Don't wait for 6 weeks later till you get a payment notice in and find you're getting half of what you claim. So we've put together a very short document, 14 pages. We've got a workshop presentation on that. And we've been working with some clients to embed that into their business, and they're finding that it's working very effectively. I mean, let me give you another example. Notices under contracts. sometimes you see a provision in a contract that you have to send a notice to half a dozen different people in different parts of the organisation. So contractors need to be aware of who they need to send notices under contracts to and how they be sent. And the number of times I've had as an adjudicator where lawyers for one party have said, well, there's no claim here, Mr. Bunton, because the notice was sent to the wrong person. So in all honesty, Howard, it is fundamental housekeeping. And I think it will make a difference.
I think you're right. I mean, one of the things that I think is really important is that, and we have asked this question in the poll, and before we go on, I do say to people, look, do take a moment to do the poll. You can still do it, because I'm going to ask Len about, do you think more training is needed across the industry to try and change cultures? And are you involved in anything like that at the moment, Len? You know, trying to look at changing cultures?
Yeah, we do. We do a lot of training on GCT contracts and NEC contracts for contracting organisations, and a number of commercial managers who are with clients that we have quite often phone me up and say, I've got a problem here in terms of an interpretation of a clause in the contract. Can you tell us what the answer is? The first thing I say to them, no, is you tell me what the answer is and I'll tell you whether I think you're right or wrong. And I think a lot of commercial managers and PQSs, for that matter, need to step up a bit to the plate in terms of understanding contracts and what they mean. So training is absolutely vital. I saw the other day that CITB had cut their budgets. I don't know, something like that. You might know more about that than I do. I don't know what the impact of that is going to be. But it's quite easy for consultants to set up a once-a-month training session for their clients and just talk to them about topical issues. And I think, you know, more and more of that is needed in our industry.
Well, there's quite a conversation about the CITB, which we won't enter into here, but it appears to me there are a number of different organisations. You mentioned there were earlier, looking at collaboration in industry. So, you know, what are your views on that? And do you think that some work is needed to bring these organisations together so that everybody knows what everybody else is doing? You know, I'm interested. I'm involved with the Institute of Collaborative Working. So, you know, we're really intensely looking at, you know, conflict avoidance as all part of the collaborative process. But what's your view on what other people are doing?
Well, I think it's fantastic. I think there's a fantastic amount of work. But the one thing that concerns me greatly, Howard, is the generation of guidance and documents that come out, and one never knows whether they end up in the waste paper bin or whether some of it is actually implemented.
Yeah.
And I've used this expression a number of times. I think the collaborators need to start collaborating with each other. I think it would help to bring a lot of these organisations together. We put a suggestion after the presentation on Monday to the Scottish Government that we brought together a symposium across the industry of all interests and have a brainstorming session for 2 and 3 hours and get other people to come and tell us what ICM are doing, what the Institute of Construction Management are doing, what CIC, CLC. There's a vast amount of stuff being generated, and I don't know where it all ends up and whether it's actually ending up in chains. But I think more unity is needed across the industry, in my view.
I think you're absolutely right. I mean, to me, where does this start? Very often it's looked at as the contractor downwards, but now, and particularly under with the Building Safety Act, you know, the client, do you think the client should be much more involved? Do you think this needs to start right at the top and be client driven?
I do think that. I mean, over the life in the industry, I have seen you know, significant involvement from clients in projects. And I think that's very important. I think they really need to understand what's happening below the water level. And then we have a lot of highly educated clients who are very well experienced in building, and I think it would. I mean, I know that, for example, the British Property Federation has many development companies and that. I think their views need to be expressed to the industry, because at the end of the day, if they go away, the industry will suffer. It's in everybody's job, everybody's interest to do a very good job for their clients. So yes, I think I don't know how much collaboration goes on between client organizations and the industry, but it's something I think is worth looking at.
I know, Len, with the colour of your beard and mine, that we've been around the industry and business a long time. Do you think the industry mindset is changing, and what positives are emerging around just collaboration and conflict avoidance? Do you think the mindset is changing?
I think the mindset is changing slowly. I think there's a huge task ahead, but I think initiatives like conflict avoidance and some of the other things that we're doing, quality initiatives, health and safety, all that sort of stuff. When you add all of these together, it's creating change with the industry. I just think it's going to be long term. I think, Howard, one point to make, we build many projects in this country, and many of them go like clockwork, end up with beautiful buildings that are functional and satisfy their clients' needs. So we shouldn't think the whole industry is a basket case. There's a lot of issues that need to be resolved, but we need to take positives from the skills and experience and ability that the construction industry has. We do shoot ourselves in the foot and be very negative at times, instead of looking at projects that have been successful and saying, well, why did that work? And what lessons can be learned from it?
Yeah, certainly. I'm aware that there is current consultation going on over payment issues and retentions. So what are your views on retention on construction contracts? Because these can cause niggles, surely.
Well, I think if I can deal with consultation and payment, I think the government's now put down a marker in terms of reporting and payment periods. So that's a first step in the right direction. Retention, it just puzzles me why we don't just get rid of it. End of story. Just take it out completely. I mean, for example, I was thinking today, if you had a contractor that had £4 million turnover, 5% of that is in a retention pot somewhere, and he can't get his hands on it. Now, it's critical at the moment that contractors get their hands on every pound that they're owed. What the industry, I think, needs to do is to demonstrate that they're going to improve the quality of the product. And I think this construction quality initiative is a great idea. But demonstrate to the client that you're going to be left with a defects-free building. And if problems arise in the next 3 months, we will undertake to rectify these as quickly as possible, and we will accept responsibility for these. But just get rid of retention and stop talking about it. It's like a spinning wheel that's been going on forever, and it's time we just bit the bullet and dumped it.
That'd be interesting to see what other people's views on that are. Because I can see two sides to the argument there. But I just wonder, Len, if we take a moment, let's have a look what our poll showed, because I think some interesting questions in there. So let's see what the room have come back with. So, Abraham, could we put the poll up, and let's have a look at that. Let's get Len's view on what the room says. Unfortunately, it's not very big. Some people in the room didn't want to answer, which is a shame. Do construction disputes harm the relationship between clients and contractors? Well, we had 4 choices here. So let's see what people said. Yeah, well, it's not surprising. Yeah. But isn't it amazing, Len, to me, that the construction sector is full of optimism bias? You know, people who've had relationships in a contract, didn't go well, people lost money, and yet here they are going into the next relationship, hoping everything from the past is gone. And they're not really recognizing that actually the relationships probably have been harmed, particularly as you're saying that contractors are being forced to take work because they need it to keep the workforce employed. So, I mean, how does this impact, do you think, your work here?
I think it's there's absolutely no doubt about it. I've heard clients say we don't want this contractor back in any of our sites again. There's no doubt about it. And if for example, if you have an adjudication in the middle of a construction project, it's very difficult to recover the relationships. So that's why, in my view, it's better to get in early and sort it out without ending up in a dispute forum. So 100% behind.
Well, just a sort of interesting question to me. Where do you think lawyers actually sit in this conflict situation? Because they actually only make money when there's conflict.
Well, a dangerous subject for me to talk about.
It is a dangerous subject, but it's true though, isn't it?
Well, yes, it is true, but I actually don't blame the lawyers. At the end of the day, clients have said to me, if we've got a problem, we want our lawyers involved because we want to give it a best shot of getting out of it. So I don't have a problem with lawyers getting involved. They're there because a problem has arisen which has not been resolved and can't be resolved, and they're there to go into a dispute resolution process. Although many of the lawyers I deal with are very much up for getting things resolved. We have 2 legal firms that have signed the conflict avoidance pledge. And I don't think we'll get any more because they've got a vested interest, but I don't blame them for that.
Okay, so we'll ease off on that. Let's look at the second question, Abraham, please. Would you support early interventions to avoid disputes? Yes, definitely. I mean, it's a sort of pretty obvious answer. I'm interested, a third of the room said maybe in some cases. It's a pity we can't look at what those cases might be, but any idea why people might answer that, Len?
No.
No.
I really
But it
don't.
is a third of the room. Not a big audience, but still, there we go. Question 3. Do you think the industry is now less able to negotiate its way out of problems? Well, firstly, 17% think that skills have declined. Interestingly, it depends on the company. And then we got a third of the room who are not sure.
I think that's a fair recollection. I deal with clients who say to me, Len, we want to find a resolution here. Let's meet the other side and try to get a deal done. And there are other companies who just say, oh, to heck with it, we'll just go to adjudication. We're never going to get this settled. They're never going to come to the table with a deal. So we've heard it all before. Let's just bash on with an adjudication.
I think once you've got to this point, though, really collaboration has failed, because collaboration should be about all the parties intentionally wanting to do it because they can benefit from it. So once it's broken down, it's never going to work after, is it?
Yeah. Can I just touch on something else in relation to this particular subject? One of the things we've been doing in the coalition is piloting some lectures to students who are coming to the end of their training, and to try to explain to them how disputes arise and how developing your skills to negotiate out of that is far better than becoming involved in a dispute resolution process. I think the generation of tomorrow need to be educated to adopt a different attitude to the generations that are now in the industry. And I think we need to work on young QSs, architects, engineers, project managers, to show them there is a better way than sending somebody a bunch of stroppy emails every day.
Yeah, that's really good. Do you find it's easy to get into these colleges? Are they happy to sort of give you the time to do
Yeah,
this?
yeah, very
Oh,
much.
great, great. Okay, let's look at number 4 then, Abraham. Well, not surprising, half the room strongly agree. I don't think people realise what disputes cost. Have you got any figure of how much disputes actually cost the sector at all?
Yes, I have, and in the slide presentation that
It gives it right. Okay, sorry, I didn't want to catch you out. No.
I don't know how much it is in the United Kingdom, but I do know one tier one contractor told me last year that they spent £5 million on lawyers' fees dealing with disputes. It must go into hundreds of millions, I suspect.
Yeah, it probably does. Okay, question number 5 then, please, Abraham. It's coming. Is the next generation entering industry with more conflict and disputes? Well, a third thing, yes, much more.
Yeah.
A little more, that's a bit positive, and it's about the same. So, in a sense, perhaps there is a bit more. Perhaps there is a bit more about. What do you think?
Yes, it is, and I think that's why we want to talk to them, to try to say to them there's a better way. There's a better way to do things.
Okay, last question then, Abraham. Should there be more training in early dispute resolution for people entering the industry? Well, not surprisingly, I mean, the majority of the room are totally in agreement with that.
Yeah.
The question I would have is, do you find people prepared to spend the money on the training given the current economic climate then?
Most of the training I do for our clients, we don't charge them any costs.
Right.
I just see that as part and parcel of helping our clients to have a more efficient business and stay in business. And if they stay in business, we've got long-term client relationships with them, and there's plenty of other things we can get in to advise them on. But yes, I think I think there should be more training. Unfortunately, the professional institutions run training courses and charge people for it for reasons that are obvious. They need to have an income. But I think a lot of the trade organisations are finding that their members are having to cut expenditure.
Mm.
And sadly, training is one of them.
Have you spoken to the CITV when it comes to the construction sector on this?
No, I haven't.
Yeah, I mean, they're now part of the Department of Works and Pensions, I think. So it's a slightly different area. And I think, it is being looked at differently. But I just wondered whether this has ever gone past them.
No, it's maybe something we should look at.
Maybe you should. I mean, they don't see collaboration as industry specific, so they're not prepared to spend money on that. So it'd be interesting to see what they say about conflict avoidance. Anyway, I don't think I've got any questions that have come through. So I know, which is maybe we've answered it all. We've done a good job. We've done a good job. I know you're keen to promote conflict avoidance, particularly to all the regions of CE.
Yeah.
And hopefully this discussion can be a starting point.
Hope so.
Is there anything else you think this audience listening to this discussion can do to support what's happening?
I think sign the pledge and take it from there. I think the strong message is we are a good business. We are a business that wants to work with you. We want to deliver the projects that you require. These are the messages. You've gone mute.
Yeah, it's fine. Sorry. I'm about to run out of battery, so I'm just getting life support for it. But I think probably we're drawing to a conclusion.
Yeah. Anyway, we are. Again, I'd like to thank Construction Excellence. It's been an absolute. I had an interview with Mark Wakefield recently. It was one of the most interesting things I've ever done. And thanks to Andrew for picking this up, and yourself and everybody in CEM. It's been rewarding to meet people that are interested in what we're trying to achieve. It just gives you great encouragement to keep putting petrol in the tank and keep going.
Well, I think, this is a good way to end the new year and say, look, 2026 is going to be the year when we move forward. So I'd like to thank you. Our next webinar, just before we go, is the 16th of January at midday. So I'm going to say to Len, thank you very much. Have a great weekend, but more important to everyone, have a great Christmas and see you in the new year. Many thanks to everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye.